This week's channeled message from the angels is trying to help us to understand the process that we are going through in this ascension. How they describe it as seeing the big picture of what's happening to the earth and to ourselves, a process of dividing where we are leaving behind what we no longer need and moving into this next reality. Is like a process of mitosis or cell division. It's a very interesting message. So thank you for coming back, you guys. Welcome back to the channel. And for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel healing and information from the angelic realm. And I do that by going into a deep trance meditative state. I raise my awareness up as high as I can, and I connect and allow those messages to come through. And I share them here with you guys on YouTube. So as I was saying, this message, it's a longer one. I'm doing it in the same format as I did last week, which is where I read the whole message. And then after that, I will go back and break it down paragraph by paragraph, because there's often multiple meanings and a much deeper layer that we can get into by pulling it apart and spending a little more time with the message. So feel free to use it however you want. If you want just the full message or if you want the breakdown, it's there for you. All right, you guys, enjoy the message.
All right, ready? Here we go. They say, feel our justice as now it opens. Feel your presence as now it unfolds. Feel the rightness of your opening. Feel your sense of self long understood. Feel this now time and dimension, its posterior unfolding, the backwards lengthening, glancing. The fast forward friction into the next now beyond. There's a pulling sensation, an acceleration among you, between you, that enfolds you now, a sense of the self as distributed, as filled up with light and extended dimensionally. You feel the self pulling backward now and forward again, stretching, stretched. We understand this. You sense in the self the many dimensions that you are in, and the two dimensions of now, of time, pulling you backward and into the next now. There is an understanding within us which we would share of this time now, which you are performing. For it is a performance, a stage you are on, a setting, a placement of the self into a context of now. And you are becoming the self in every moment of this time that is offered in this context. You are acting the now, performing the now, being the self in this now environment. And we would share so you would understand that what is happening to the self. There is, as we are speaking, a divergence within the earth herself, a separation from what was into now, the next now, a separation within yourselves. There is this divergence, which is positive, a prosperous separating, a most beneficial becoming for the selves. We are in favor of this. It behooves you now to allow this separation from what was, to let go of the next becoming of what was, and to step into the now of this next offering, to become the next self. There is within the self a lack of understanding of what is happening dimensionally. There is only the self understanding the now as it is, as you're experiencing it through your five senses. You feel the self beckoning in, calling forward to what you believe you will encounter. And we would say there's more happening just now than you can appreciate from within this limitation of your physical apparatus. Your limitation of feeling, seeing, touching. The taste of this now leaves yourself to believe that this is one concrete possibility, when in fact you're separating from that last existence. That which was separating through time, through space, through understanding. A separation. The earth herself divides, and what was no longer is. This next coming eradicates within the self that falling time, that sense of self elongated into a pose of frictioned slumber. This next self, the opportunity that rises within you, the divergence, it will be a parade of yourself, a marching band to conquer all ills within your heart, to let free quiet whispers of your inner longing, to feel within the self your own habits and considerations, to feel the renewal of these, to let them breathe more full. On offer is Earth herself, her beauty, her bounty, her pleasure, Earth herself. An invitation to live more full, more complete as you are enfolded within this entrusted place. The division within the self, within her, the earth, it happens incrementally. By pose, each placement of the self, a new divergence happens. Each second now, something else is amiss, separating piece by piece. Crustless boundaries within herself, the earth, she separates from what was, separating from what is. You feel within the self, your emotionality confirms this. You feel the self torn in two dimensions, in two places. You feel the self lengthening through time and yet shortened, as though time passes quickly and yet enfolds so much, so many reflections, so much thought and interpretation. The self is long and short, intermixed, as though unconquered time has run amok in the self. Feel within the self this pulling sensation of clinging to what was and reaching for your north, extending how you are stretched physically, emotionally at times. You are drawn out. Those purposeful things which catch you now, which pull you down, which ground your feelings into context, which you feel the great arrival of some trauma. Yes, this is now the great unwinding that must come. The great unwinding of the self, of the earth herself. There is more of this as peace herself is liberated between you. The trust of which we have spoken to be enjoyed is not here yet. It must come first within the self. There is in the meantime this unfolding, the divergence of which we are speaking. And within yourselves, your lives, you will find this. There is much coming, much disturbance on the earth. You feel this now. You're appreciating this action, understanding it must come. It is the tearing open, the divergence, the leaving of what was. It is more than just your own mentality which must form the separating. There is among herself, among yourselves and earth, an actual divergence of two selves. Two wholes part from one self. Two wholes, like a magnet, pulled apart. Two pieces separate. Two wholes, two selves, a divergence. The old soul self and the new self rising, becoming. The old self, she harbors friction, tepid living, an embodiment not so clear, a sense of self as mired in the complexity of her own thoughts and thinking. A sense of self internal, guarded, regulated by fear. From this place you're leaving, tearing the self, freedom you are seeking as you diverge and pull from that now and let it split you, have you. Give that over, release it now, let it go, bygone, and feel in the self the liberated form. Feel your own housing receptive now to the new light you're carrying. Let this form your being now. Let it be this light that you refer to openly, that you feel within the self. Your context now shifting, changing. You must form within the self an appreciation of this shift. Feel into what you are, how you have come, how you have shifted. What this change is doing, it is not complete yet. We must say this now. For our comprehension of the selves, we form our comprehension along the time as it is passing. We see you now as always. But we must say for your comprehension, it is not fixed yet. It is in undoing, a deregulating of oneself into two halves, two parts, yes, complete as one was. But yourselves, you move on, and that which was is past in your energy, in yourselves, in your remembrance, in your experiences of now, it is past. This separating self, it must occur for some time now. It is a great unfolding of where you are, and there's more to come just now on the horizon. The great unraveling takes its tone from the self. Feel in the self as you're bridging this opening. as you are rising above the turmoil, the unsettling. Feel in the self as you are reaching for what is, living in the new now, bridging. You can breach. You can breach this gap, this turmoil. You can feel in the self for how to reach into that next beyond in the calm. And the truth of the self that carries you now. It is the light within that answers. You beckon us in and we point to now within the self. You are all that is. So, yeah, right? Amazing message. And we'll break it down and talk it through. So just try to absorb that. And I'm sure you guys all got impressions from that first reading of what they're speaking about. I think it explains a lot about what we're experiencing right now. I know so many people who've been talking about how they have been feeling. It's like you have two dials. You have the happy dial and the sad dial at the same time. You have moments or days when you feel phenomenal, or days when you just feel like, wow, like I just in the muck, right? There's this, and sometimes it's a physical pulling that we're feeling pulled apart. Sometimes it's an emotional pulling that we're feeling pulled apart. But I know so many people that I know will relate to how they're describing this experience, right? And you're saying, yeah, that happens. And you're saying, wow, I know this is definitely a wow message. So I think what they're trying to explain with this message is they're trying to show us, okay, here is what we're experiencing. This is what the lived experience of this process is. And we are experiencing it through our five senses. We're having a human experience of this process, and we are understanding it linearly through time. So we see a future and we see a past. And the angels are telling us that their understanding of it is not that it's not linear, that they see it as a pulling apart, like what I called mitosis, which is like how a cell divides. And this makes perfect sense to me, because things that we've learned this over and over and over again, that things that are true in the small are true in the big, that what's true in our internal bodies is true in the universe. And how do we grow? Each cell divides through a process called mitosis, where you start with one cell and then it creates two of itself and slowly pulls apart, and you end up with two identical cells. And that's what they're describing in this message. That's what they're saying is happening on Earth, and we are a part of Earth. We are the neurons of Earth. So they're saying we're having this splitting experience that's happening right now. And we are sort of moving. We are moving to one side, and they're saying the other side is what we experience as past, but these are in fact two wholes. And this is a thing we would describe as being like in two dimensions, is how we would best understand it. So I know it's a lot to wrap our heads around, but let's go through it paragraph by paragraph and let them explain it to us as best they can. And it's really like this is going to happen whether we understand it or not. So it's not essential that we have a full grasp of it. But what's essential is that we understand that we are changed, and that we understand what this change is, so that we can start to be present to it, because there's internal work we have to do to help this move into its highest expression. Okay, so let's go into paragraph by paragraph. They have this first line I was talking about where they say, it's super cool. In 4 phrases, they basically sum up the whole thing. They say, feel our justice as now it opens. Feel your peace now as it unfolds. Feel the rightness of your opening. Feel your sense of self, long understood. So these 4 phrases, the first one, feel our justice as now it opens. This refers to releasing our karma. So karma is the ways, like think about justice. It refers to our judgment of ourselves. Like we feel that we have given ourselves our justice. When we cross over, we judge ourselves. We think it is just that we have to come back and make up for or heal something that we did, or some relationship that was unresolved, right? So this now we're moving into their justice. Well, the angels don't judge, right? They love us as we are. They accept all things. They see us as perfect in our current incarnation. There is no karma. So the angels' justice is a life without karma. So they say, feel our justice as it opens. It's the release of karma. That's the first thing. The second thing they say, feel your peace as it now unfolds. So that, in other words, say first we release our karma. We go into the justice of the angels, which is without karma. Then when we do that, peace unfolds. We feel peace, right? The next thing they say, feel the rightness of your opening. So this is right. In other words, they're saying trust it. They keep saying that we have to trust. We have to trust and open. So go into this process with this acceptance of ourselves, letting ourselves come in, trust this process, and begin to open to our higher selves, right? That's the next line. The fourth line, they say, feel your sense of self, long understood. So they're saying here is that when we go through this process, we release our karma, the peace comes in, we trust and open, and then what happens? More of ourselves come in and we get that gravity that we've been talking about, that gravity in ourselves of more of ourselves that we let in, right? So we're letting in a greater amount of our own light, greater density of our own light. And this, they're saying this is that sense of self long understood. So they're saying this is long understood means this has been like, this is our eternal self that we're letting in. So crazy cool. First little opening paragraph, 4 lines, they say it all, right? In a second. I just love that. How they, like, yeah, the divine intelligence in this stuff blows my mind every single time. So, and you're saying, I'm just letting it wash over me and maybe it makes sense when it happens. I think that's the best we can do, because we need to understand we are living we are limited by our human brain and by our human senses. And so it's literally just the acceptance and the allowing. And that's the best place to return to. When it's too much, just go back to allowing. And I think that's the right answer. And Mike is saying, one day I am the red dwarf, the next day I'm the white dwarf star. The mother is becoming the whole white dwarf stars, a scene from space. Yes, I think that is a great way to express it, Mike. And Rebecca saying, I can't wait to feel their justice. Me too. Releasing the karma. You're saying, ooh, I like that. I felt my solar plexus light up a lot lately. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that is the light that's coming in. All right, so let's move into the next paragraph. They say, feel this now, time and dimension. It's posterior unfolding, the backwards lengthening, glancing. So this part they're saying, okay, now the time that we're in, there's this posterior unfolding, the backward lengthening, glancing. This is referring backwards. I love their choice of the word posterior, because they're not just saying backward in time, which is how we understand it. We understand it as time, like that's how we used to be. The word posterior actually means further back in position. So it's a physical dimension. They're saying posterior is like behind you physically, not in time, which is a perception. It's a physical placement. So they're already referring to the fact that this is a splitting apart, a physical process of splitting apart into 2 pieces or 2 halves, right? There's this stuff we're leaving behind and the stuff we're taking with us. And so, yeah, but they're saying, okay, there is the part of us that's the pieces of ourselves that are separating from us, which is our trauma, our karma, splitting away posterior, right? Moving aside, moving backwards from us. The unfolding, the backwards lengthening. And there is this sense of lengthening. If you look at a diagram of this process of mitosis, of cellular splitting, you'll see it stretches. The cells are stretching apart. And that's what they're talking about here, the lengthening, right? We're being pulled apart into 2 halves. And the second part they say here, the fast forward friction into the next beyond. So the first part is we have this backwards pulling, and then the fast forward friction into the next beyond. I love that it is moving forward, and it refers to the friction, that our resistance to this process. What are the ways in which we create our own friction to our growth, right? There's a pulling sensation, an acceleration among you, between you, that enfolds you now. So for those of you who know, like what is it that we resist in growth? The feeling of change, acceleration. That for those of you that are skiers, if you are going downhill, there's no fear as long as you're maintaining a constant speed. What creates speed is acceleration, is change. And so that's that feeling that's where we get our friction. That's where we start to resist. So this is what they're talking about. And they're saying it unfolds us now. A sense of the self as distributed, right? So we're being split between these 2 aspects or 2 places as our junk is being pulled out of us, right? And they talk about how that's happening. And they saying as light, as filled up with light and extended dimensionally. So as this process is happening, junk pulls out, we start to fill up with our own light. You feel the self pulling backward now and forward again, stretching. We understand this. So this is the process we're going through. So we are being stretched through this process, our junk being pulled out, light coming in. So this is what they're talking about. And you're saying, I am feeling my heart chakra more than ever, like it's literally bursting. That is phenomenal. That's phenomenal. I'd love to hear that. All right, next paragraph. They say, you sense in the self the many dimensions that you are in. and the two dimensions of now, of time pulling you backward and into the next now. There is an understanding within us which we would share of this time now, which you are performing. For it is a performance, a stage you are on, a setting, a placement of the self into a context of now, and you are becoming the self in every moment of time that is offered in this context. You are acting the now, performing the now, being the self in this now environment, and we would share so you would understand what is happening to the self. So this paragraph is about, and it's really inviting us to step back and see a larger picture of what's happening, because we are kind of in the muck. We are living the life. We're in the mire of our own experience. And so this paragraph is asking us to take a step back and see ourselves as the actor on the stage, to see us from our higher self perspective, and to see the bigger picture of what's happening to the whole, like to understand that we are a part of Earth. We are like the neurons on the face of the Earth, to step back and to see the whole body and to understand this process of mitosis or separation, this pulling apart that's happening, this dividing between the old Earth and the new Earth, if that makes sense. So they're saying, so here they're saying a placement of the self into the context of now. So it literally is, and I like that this is a reference to this idea that each of us is a very unique spark of source, that we contain a unique aspect of source within us, and each of us is super important, because each of us is carrying, like without all of us, then it would be an incomplete picture of what source is. So, and we take that aspect of ourselves, that unique aspect of source, and we put it in this context that we are living, and we say, what will I do in this context? How will I be when faced with these obstacles or faced with these wonderful things? How will my particular spark of source change and grow and evolve? And so that's what's interesting. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're living this life. And then I love here at this end, they say, being the self in this now environment, right? And what we would share so you would understand what is happening to the self. So that's the main reason they're going through this with us, is that they want us to really understand the bigger picture of what's happening. All right, next paragraph. And this next paragraph is is basically saying that this is a good thing that's happening. They're reassuring us that yes, this is a splitting, but it's definitely something that is a positive for humankind. And here's how they say it. They say, there is, as we are speaking, a divergence within the earth herself, a separation from what was into now, the next now, a separation within yourselves. There is this divergence, which is positive, a prosperous separating, a most beneficial becoming for the selves. We are in favor of this. It behooves you now to allow this separation from what was, to let go of the next becoming of what was, and to step into the now of this next offering. So, and I think this is really interesting how they say here to let go of the next becoming of what was. So, in other words, it's like a timeline. We talk about timelines a lot. Like imagine that this old way of being has a timeline that could keep on going, that there is a next. If we were to stay there and keep on creating, there is a next becoming for what was. And they're saying that they want us to let go of that next. So that's the whole thing when they keep hammering on us about letting go of our expectations, letting go of the things that we're really attached to, because that is the next becoming of what was. And they want us to step into the now of this next offering, which we can't understand or we can't quite grasp what it's going to be yet. So that's why we have to be open and allow. So that's part of the stepping into this other new, right? So that's why we have to let go, if that makes sense. And you're saying everything is a good thing to the angels. You're so right. They're pretty positive all the time. You are right about that. No, they occasionally will say things and they will apologize or be compassionate too. So I've seen that too. But mostly they share the good stuff. They never want to bum us out. You know what I mean? They're always trying to lift us up. So, all right, next paragraph. There is within the self a lack of understanding of what is happening dimensionally. And by the way, this paragraph is telling us that we can't see what's happening. So the whole gist of this paragraph is saying that because of where we are, of who we are living in this body, we aren't able to see this bigger picture normally. So they're saying within the self, there is a lack of understanding of what is happening dimensionally. There is only the self, understanding the now as it is, as you're experiencing it through your five senses. You feel the self beckoning in, calling forward to what you believe you will encounter. And we would say there's more happening just now than you can appreciate from within this limitation of your physical apparatus. Your limitation of feeling, seeing, touching. The taste of this now leaves yourself to believe that this is only one concrete possibility, that this is one concrete possibility, when in fact you're separating from that last existence. So they're really pointing out here to help us understand why we wouldn't normally understand, or why is it hard for us to grasp this. And it's because we are experiencing the world through the five senses, that this is something that we will experience as time passing, that we will see it as that was just the past, and that's who I was, and then this is who I am now. And you guys know, as you heal issues, as you release stuff that used to feel like so part of who you were, when you're able to heal it and let it go, how it feels like it's so far away from where you are now that it's literally like that was another person. Like, you might ask yourself, like, how could I have believed that? You know what I mean? Like, how could that have even been part of my reality? Because it feels so far away. But we still label it as something in our past, even though that's one of those pieces that's this mitosis process. It's pulling out of ourself and creating a new bubble over there. Right? It's so separate from us. It's not even part of us anymore. So we understand everything through time, and they're saying, yeah, time is fake. There's no such thing as time in reality, in terms of how they perceive it. They perceive it as this process of mitosis where it feels like these pieces that we no longer need are pulled out and created as a separate thing over there. It's such a crazy concept, but it makes sense when you think about it. And then here again, they refer to, we are calling forward to what we believe we will encounter. So that is again a reference to our expectations and their desire for us to release our expectations and the things that we cling to, that we think are necessary for ourselves. They really are trying to get us to release that. So, and they say that we are trying to appreciate it from within the limitation of our physical apparatus, within the limitations of our five senses. And then here in the last sentence, they say, the taste of this now leaves yourself to believe that this, in other words, this world, this life is one concrete possibility, right? When in fact, you're separating from that last existence. So they're trying to get us to, we think of this world as a concrete thing, that it is real because we can touch it and we can smell it and we can taste it. So it feels like this is concrete. And they're saying it's not at all concrete, that everything is energy, and that this is not the only possibility, that we can be standing right here and this world is separating into two right around us. And we're not even aware of it because we can still touch it. We can still, smell it, but it's separating all around us. And that's what they're trying to express, which is a serious mind bender. I know, like, this is one of those moments, right? And you're saying, is it true that there is no such thing as time, or there is no such thing as time the way that we see it? Yeah, that this concept of time is not how, and it's true for us. So I think a lot of times you'll hear that there is no time, but our perception creates a reality. So for us, yes, time is true. And there is such a true thing as 365 days around the sun. That is true, right? But from the angel's perspective, they see all things as now. Like their perspective, I like to think of their perspective. If you have ever seen a picture of what a bee sees or a fly sees through their eyes, it's like they see 50 windows. Like they have all these little lenses and each one is a picture. And so I think of that as the best way for me to conceptualize how the angels view us, as they see all of us. They see everything in an instant, like our whole, like every moment of our eternity. They see as boom, there it is, all of it. And we are unable to do that. Humans can only see one thing at a time, and angels aren't. They can see everything all at once. So it's for them, there's no time because they see everything, right? So, and all times are happening at the same moment, at the same instant. So yeah, it's very hard as a human to grasp it, but it does help me. That bee visual helps me get it. So hopefully that helps you guys too. You're saying, I get the feeling that they're speaking of a big interruption to the current broadcasting. I feel like definitely like this pulling apart process is definitely interrupting everything. That's like there's going to be a lot of physical manifest. There already has been, like we've seen it, like right now, everywhere, all around us, there's chaos. And that is this disentangling, this pulling apart. And they're going to refer to that, why it's so chaotic here a little bit further on. And then, let's see, for matter, physical beings, time is very real. Yes, I totally agree. Now is where two worlds meet. Yes, I think so too. Yeah, and revisit destinations of growth. As we move through our life, we definitely are. It's the point of all this is our growth, and that's what we're trying to experience. Yeah. You're saying it is somehow mind-blowing to try to imagine how angels experience time. I totally agree. Yeah, it is. It would be so. It would literally be like explode my brain. Like we just couldn't. We just not set up for it. Not here. Not while we're embodied. I think once we get outside of the physical body, then all of a sudden, and you hear that for people who have NDEs, that all of a sudden they understand everything, and it's they're not constrained anymore by the human body. But the constraint of being here, that's the beauty of it. It's the ability to be surprised is what helps us grow. So that means we can't know everything while we're here, right? All right. This next paragraph is going to tell us what are the benefits from this process, right? So from what we're going from and what we're moving into. So what are the two bubbles? We're moving into this bubble and leaving this bubble behind. So they say that which was separating through time, through space, through understanding, a separation, separating. Earth herself divides, and what was no longer is. And this next coming eradicates within the self that falling time, that sense of self elongated into a pose of frictioned slumber. This next self, the opportunity that rises within you, the divergence, it will be a parade of yourself, a marching band to conquer all ills within your heart, to let free quiet whispers of your inner longing, to feel within the self your own habits and considerations, to feel the renewal of these, to let them breathe more full. Love this paragraph. So here they're saying what was no longer is. So they're talking about that what we're moving from to what we're moving to. And they're saying what we're moving from, and I love the word that they use, is eradicate. And eradicate means to destroy completely. So it's a wiping out. It's a complete elimination, right, of that what we think of as our karma, of our trauma, of all those things, our baggage, right? A complete elimination, eradication. So it's not just to eliminate it, it's to eradicate it, right? So that is completely pulled out. And they say within the self, that falling time, the time in which we have fallen, right? When we lower our vibration, is how they describe that, that fallen time. They say that sense of self elongated into a pose of frictioned slumber. Stunning. Like a pose, they've been talking about us being on a stage. So this is a pose that we take while we're here of frictioned slumber. So we are asleep to ourselves, asleep to who we really are, asleep to source and to all that we know. And it's frictioned. So that's the karma. So it's a frictioned slumber is what we're doing here. This, in 2 words, you could wrap it up. The experience of the Earth School, frictioned slumber. Beautiful. And this is what we're moving next, what we're moving to. They're saying this next self, the opportunity that rises within you, the divergence, which is this pulling apart, it will be a parade of yourself, a marching band to conquer all ills within your heart. I love that. I love that. And it is meant to be where we allow the truth of who we really are to come in. And that truth is light. When they keep talking about filling up with light, they're talking about filling up with the truth of who we really are, our full self, to let that power in. And it is power. And it's going to set right in there, and we are going to be pushing out from there. That's where we're manifesting our next reality from that gravity, which we are trying to embody right now. We're trying to let more and more of it in. So the more that we can let in, the better, right? And so it is. And here they talk about to let free the quiet whispers of your inner longing. So it's really learning to listen to ourselves and to let go of all those external voices that color our perspective, right? And then to feel within the self your own habits and the considerations and the renewal of these. So it's sort of at every level, right? It is the subconscious self, it's the conscious self, and it's also the habits. Everything has to get rewritten as we move into this next stage of our incorporate, our living of humanity, this next stage for humanity. All right, the next paragraph, they say, on offer is Earth herself, her beauty, her bounty, her pleasure, Earth herself. An invitation to live more full, more complete as you are enfolded within this entrusted place. And I love that they use that wording, entrusted place, that when something is entrusted, it is given over for care and protection specifically. So it is not just given over. To entrust something has the word in there, that key word they keep bringing up, which is trust. And so we are entrusted to the earth. So this means that earth is assigned responsibility for our care and protection. So always emphasizing that we aren't just abandoned here. We aren't just thrown, even though it feels that way sometimes. It feels like you're just thrown to the wolves and life is chaos and maybe things aren't working out the way you want. But they're saying that's never actually true. That there's always guardrails on every side as we are moving through life. It feels like it's crazy and I'm being carried around in this tide that I can't control, but there are guardrails. And we are always being carried in the direction of our greatest growth. Next paragraph. The division within the self, within her, the earth, it happens incrementally. So this is understanding that this is a process, a step by step by step, and it's going to unfold over a long period of time, right? By pose, so again, referring to that same stage metaphor that we're on the stage, each placement of the self, a new divergence happens. Each second, now something else is amiss, separating piece by piece. So everything you release, every moment that you're encountering yourself, perceiving the ways in which we've held ourselves back and letting go, this is happening faster and faster right now. I don't know about you guys, but my own healing process has just stepped it up in this year in particular. Like, I don't think I've ever moved through issues so quickly. It just pops up and it's gone. It's like that fast. And so hopefully you guys are experiencing that too, or being encountered more and more deeply, right? Where if something is deep and it needs to be released, it's like we're really having to face it right now. So they're speeding up and deepening the healing process on purpose. And I think that's a key to take from this is, why is it so chaotic? Why is there so much craziness in the earth, on earth right now? It's because they are trying as much as possible to help us get every bit of value out of this earth school while it still exists in the way that we are experiencing it, so that we can hold as much of that light as we possibly can. So it really is that they're speeding up the process of our healing, and that can be very painful for a lot of us. I know that. So just understand it. There's a point to it, and it will not go on forever, because there will be a place where we get through this process of pulling apart, and then we will be in the new reality. And then interesting, they say each second now something else is amiss, separating piece by piece. Then they say crustless boundaries within earth, or within herself. The earth she separates from what was. So crustless boundaries. The earth has a crust, and so I think that is interesting, because I think it refers to the metaphysical comprehension. If you see it from this step, it has multiple layers. I think if you see it from a distance and we see it as this cell mitosis, think of the earth as a cell, and then it's slowly splitting into two, and now you've got two, right? Two earth or two cells. So that's one piece of it, and that would be a crustless. It's not the earth, this crust that's breaking. It's like an energetic thing, or just like we are separating. There's our old self and there's our new self, and it doesn't take our skin to change. It's an energetic separation, so a crustless separation. But there is also in this a referral to the crust shifting and the crust moving, and the fact that there will be, as they talked about, earth rifts and things like that. So it's happening on a lot of layers. Crustless boundaries. So anyways, I think there's a lot to that. All right. And you're saying, sorry, let me go back. I missed you. You're saying it doesn't stop me trying. Yes. And Mike is saying, and then you're saying, Mike, me too. I sit with it until I have an existing crisis, and then I have to find something mundane to do. You say, guess why I feel my mind, I guess why I feel my mind blow. Yeah, it is mind blowing. And then you're saying, all I do is knowing what I am, where I am, who I am within the mother. And you're saying, agreed. Better understanding of the healing process too. Yes, it is really helpful, I think, the way they describe it, or the way that as we're experiencing it and talking about it, I think it really helps to understand what's going on inside of us. Absolutely, massive healing has been happening this year, and I and so many others are in a constant growth period always. Thank you for that confirmation. I find that too, and I think it's amazing. More often, I recognize the opportunity for healing as it comes up rather than being caught up in it. Oh, that's fantastic. So your self-awareness, you're present to it. And I think that's a great way of describing what's happening, is just by our awareness, then we're able to move through it more quickly. We're not just stuck in it and wondering like, why do I feel so bad? It becomes like, oh, this is what's going on with me. Yeah. So that's, fantastic. Thank you guys for the comments. All right. Next paragraph. They say, Okay, this paragraph is about what this feels like to us. So, how are we experiencing this process? As human embodied beings, how do we experience this? They're saying, you feel within the self, your emotionality confirms this. You feel the self torn in two dimensions, in two places. You feel the self lengthening through time and yet shortened, as though time passes quickly and yet unfolds so much. So many reflections, so much thought and interpretation. The self is long and short, intermixed, as though unconquered time has run amok in the self. I love that. That is a fun visual. But I think that people are always talking about how time is moving faster now. And I think there's a reality to that. And then there's the lived experience of that. But at the same time, here we are healing so much faster, encountering ourselves more quickly. So there's this sense like, I cannot believe that I was going to say that we are in August. I cannot believe that we are in October, that we are heading towards October almost, right? This is the end of September. And it feels like it was just yesterday that it was January. And yet this year has been so full, right? When I think about what's happened this year, it's went by in an instant. So it's just like they're describing. It's like I feel that time is lengthening and shortening at the same time. So that's how we are experiencing this divide, right? All right. And then, and you're saying this is the part I didn't understand at first, so hopefully that makes it clearer. And you're laughing out loud. Yeah, me too. I know. I'm running amok in the self. I think this is hilarious, but it feels that way. It feels like, what is going on with time? Like a month goes by, and I feel like it was just a moment ago. So I'm having to be super, super dedicated to keeping my calendar, because otherwise I will be completely lost. All right, next paragraph. So here they say, feel within the self this pulling sensation of clinging to what was and reaching for your north, extending how you are stretched physically, emotionally at times. You are drawn out. Those purposeful things which catch you now, which pull you down, which ground your feelings into context. I love that part. Which you feel the great arrival of some trauma. Yes, this is now the great unwinding that must come. The great unwinding of the self, of the earth herself. There is more of this as peace herself is liberated between you. Okay, so there's a lot happening in this paragraph. I'm totally loving it. So this part right here, there's those purposeful things which catch you now. So these are like the main things we came to heal. Like, what are the things that we set out that are purposeful, that we came to earth with the purpose to heal the specific thing that we really wanted to work through or experience in this lifetime. So those things which catch us now, which pull you down, which ground your feelings into context. So this is the goal, is to ground those feelings. So think about the feelings. They are loose in your body, in your apparatus, blocking you, confusing you, right? Lowering your vibration. And we want to ground those out, just like a grounding wire does with electricity. You have that copper ground, or, when lightning strikes a lightning rod, and there is the grounding wire, which it goes into the earth and the earth absorbs it. We want to ground our feelings into this context. The context is created for us specifically to trigger these things, the emotions that we carry, the baggage that we want to heal. So this is perfectly said, right? Those purposeful things which catch you now. So the things we came to with a purpose to heal, which pull you down, which lower your vibration, ground your feelings, which is releasing them into the earth because of this context that we are in, this purposefully created context, which is designed to trigger your junk. So beautifully said in one sentence. All right, and they say this is now the great unwinding that must come. And this is just a reference to the fact that things are chaos now, and that I get the feeling from stuff they've been saying just recently, from what came up in our most recent peace bathing session, was very intense and beautiful. They used the container of, it's a large group of people that join in on peace bathing, so it's a lot of capacity for energy, and they used it to bring peace. And it was a peace to the planet, peace to us. And it was all about trust. It was a gorgeous session, but it was serious work that was being done. And it felt very much to me in that session like there is a strong reference to the potential for more war. So I feel like the timing of it was not accidental. So I just look at this and they say, this is now the great unwinding that must come. So there's stuff coming, and we know that. You guys have known that for a long time. So they're just referring to that now. There's more of this, right? There's a great unwinding of the self, of the earth herself. So as much as we are going through our healing process, the earth is going through, humanity is going through it. But I love this last sentence of this paragraph. There's more of this as peace herself is liberated between you. And so that's the goal, is we're trying to get to a place where and what happened in the peace bathing session that was so incredible is they exposed, like I think of it as like a banana peel, like where they peeled us open after filling us up with ourselves, with our own light, making sure we had adequate energy inside of us. They literally peeled us open like a banana and exposed the truth of who we really are. And then in that totally exposed state, that vulnerable state of nothing hidden, this is who I am, they brought us together in trust. And that trust generated peace, right? It was beautiful. And then that trust is what rained down onto the planet. It was so stunning. And so I think that's peace herself is liberated between you. So it's only us, it's only ourselves that's preventing it, that's preventing peace. And it always starts within ourselves with trusting each other. And then that moves us towards peace. All right, next paragraph. And this next paragraph is about telling us that this divergence, that before we get to that place, that next reality that we want to get to, this divergence they're talking about, they're saying that it has to come first. So here's how they say it. They say, the trust of which we have spoken to be enjoyed is not here yet. It must come first within the self. There is, in the meantime, this unfolding, the divergence of which we are speaking. And within yourselves, your lives, you will find this. There is much coming, much disturbance on the earth. You feel this now. You're appreciating this action, understanding it must come. It is the tearing open, the divergence, the leaving of what was. So just in the same way that we have to face our junk, it's like at all of humanity, we have to allow this. And it's not a gentle thing. It's a tearing. They're describing it as a tearing apart. And that is what it is, because releasing, people don't like to release. It's sort of like feeling like, oh, that's part of me. You know what I mean? I love that junk. It's who I am. It's part of my identity, you know? Like people who really strongly identify, for example, with their heritage or the legacy of where they came from, they can get really tied into the baggage that comes in their family. So, and they might be really reluctant to let it go. They might really feel like who I am a part of this family, this, whatever this last name is, and the legacy of that family. And that charge around that ties them into the baggage of that family. Yeah. So it's the releasing of it is a tearing of our identity and even in some ways a physicality, a tearing of our physicality. We have to let go the energy that's inside of ourselves. All right. And you're saying, the great, you're saying, I don't know about faster, but definitely broader and deeper, like in only 3 months, things happen that used to fit into 1 year. Yes, 100%. And you're saying time is traveling insanely fast. That is definitely my experience. You're saying the great unwinding, that is such a great way to describe time, earth shifts, our experiences. I love it. And you're saying perfect. That's wonderful. Hi, just arrived. Hi, welcome. And you're saying, I can't wait to meet myself, honestly. It is a beautiful thing to hold more and more of that. And I love that defining it as gravity, because when I am in the space, when I can tell when I'm in the space, when I really got a lot of me in me, I can feel it as a distinct difference, that I feel like I'm moving through earth. I feel like moving through life, and I just feel like I'm shooting out and like the world is just parting, like the Red Sea or whatever, just parting in front of me, and I'm just moving through it. And I can't hold it for very long. You know, that feeling, I can hold it and then I get in the muck and then I can hold it. And it's an amazing feeling when I'm there. So yeah, it is. Me too. I am looking forward to having more and more of that experience. And you're saying divergence and leaving, earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods. Oh my, oh yeah. Making us do it whether we want to or not. That's the truth, right? And it's for our best. It really is for our best. I know it's not easy, and there's a lot of sorrow and hardship for a lot of people, but we know that if they can use that, if they can recognize, that's what they keep talking about, letting go of our attachment. It's only in the clinging, in the resistance to things, that we have our pain. If we look at things washing away and we say, okay, that means there's something better for me, right? Then the pain is a lot less. So it's how we understand what happens that matters, I think, in terms of our emotional state, in terms of how we feel inside. I always go back to that beautiful book written by, and maybe you guys can give me the name, Victor, who was in the concentration camp, experiencing some of the greatest hardships we could imagine. Viktor Frankl, I think, and how he saw every day as a blessing. How could he have that state of mind? So imagine him moving through that experience without friction. Incredible, right? All right, Viktor Frankl. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, and you're saying when we say it, it sounds so easy. I know, it sounds so easy in discussing it. And I understand the emotions, and living through it is not easy. But it's possible. We can see the example of it, and we can see that it's possible. And you guys know you can hold it in moments, right? If you can hold it in moments, we can hold it for longer moments. And that's to be celebrated, and not to judge ourselves when we fall down. Just to recognize I'm just falling down, and I'll get up again because I can, right? And you're saying it's Man's Search for Meaning. Yes, thank you. That's the name of the book. Beautiful book, and beautiful thing to think of, like in the times when things are hard. Yeah. All right. So this next part, did I read this to you guys? Let's see. This next paragraph. I don't know if I did. Where am I? I'm losing my place. So this next paragraph is about an actual, okay, no, I didn't. This next paragraph is about the actual division that's happening. And this is where it comes into this idea of mitosis, of a true, like cells, two things pulling apart. So this is where they get into that. So here they say, it is more than just your own mentality which must form the separating. So it's not just mental. They're saying there is among herself, among yourselves and earth, an actual divergence of two selves, two wholes part from one self. So this is that mitosis. If you look at it, you can look up the diagram. I was going to get a diagram for yourselves, but I couldn't find one that wasn't... anyways, my point being is that it's literally like it's a pulling apart of one into two cells, or one cell becomes two cells, cell division, right? Two wholes, like a magnet pulled apart, two pieces separate, two wholes, two selves, a divergence, the old soul self and the new self rising, becoming. And then in this next part of the paragraph, they talk about what the old self has. So what are we leaving behind? They say, the old self, she harbors friction, tepid living. So tepid is like it's not very warm. It's kind of like lukewarm. Tepid living, so living without joy, right? Joyless living. An embodiment not so clear. So this is like our confusion, our lack of clarity. A sense of self as mired in the complexity of her own thoughts and thinking. And I love here that they shift over and they just talk about Earth, because we are the neurons of Earth. And they're saying of herself, of complexity of her own thoughts and thinking. So we are mired in ourself. We are the neurons. We are the thinking of the Earth, right? A sense of self, eternal, internal, guarded, regulated by fear. So this is what we are leaving behind, is the time and space in which we have been regulated by fear. That's what we're leaving. And you're saying, I've seen an illustration of the Earth doing it to demonstrate the new Earth coming. Oh, that's very cool. How appropriate is that? Yeah. And I think that's what this is talking about, that on some level that we don't comprehend, that's what's happening. And I don't know how. I can't wrap my head around it, but that's what they're describing. And they're trying to describe it so we can understand that it's happening to us too. All right, next paragraph. From this place you're leaving, tearing the self, freedom you are seeking as you diverge and pull from that now and let it split you, have you. And have is spelled, it's the HALVE. It's like in half, like have you. Not have, but like cut in half, have you. To turn you into two halves. And they're saying, give that over, release it now. Let it go bygone and feel in the self the liberated form. So as we let go of our karma, as we let go of all that stuff and it's torn from us, then what we have remaining is our liberated self. And says, feel your own housing, receptive now to the new light that you're carrying. So the more that we release, the more we empty out of our friction, the more space there is for our higher self, for that fuller truth of who we are to come in. And that's the light that we're carrying, right? And the next paragraph is they say, let this form your being now. Let this be, let it be this light that you refer to openly, that you feel within the self. Your context now shifting, changing. You must form within the self an appreciation of this shift. Feel into what you are, how you have come, how you have shifted. So this is very importantly saying that we can speed up the process for ourselves by appreciating and understanding what's happening to us. So the more it's like by anything that we put our awareness on grows. So having this awareness of what is happening and of the fact that as we release stuff, that this light is coming in and what it means, then we help to to strengthen that process. So they want us, they're saying you must form within the self an appreciation for this shift. So recognize how far you've come. Recognize the light that you're carrying. That is what they're saying, because the more you focus on it, the more it gets stronger, right? Okay, so next paragraph, they say, let this form your being now. Let it be this light. Oh, sorry, I just read that. Let it be this light that you refer to openly. Yeah, and so that part, let this be this light that you refer to openly. So it's like, understand that this is who you are now. Let it be this light. This is the light that you are. So this is where we should attach our identity, is to the truth of who we are and to this greater light that you're carrying. And it's not to all the things that we have always thought was important, right? It's not about belonging to a particular family or to a profession or to what we have done. So many of us define ourselves by what we accomplish. And they're saying none of that. They're saying define it by the light that you carry, and understand that that is a way of moving through the world. And that way of moving through the world is who you are. And that's a big shift in understanding ourselves. But that's what they want us to get to. And all right, so the next paragraph, they say, and this next paragraph is telling us that it's a process, that we're going to experience it linearly because we're human. So we're going to see it as past and future. But it is a process that we're going through, that it's not finished yet. That's what the point of this paragraph is telling us. It says, what this change is doing, it is not complete yet. We must say this now. For our comprehension of the selves, we form our comprehension along the time as it is passing. We see you now as always. But we must say, for your comprehension, it is not fixed yet. It is in undoing, a deregulating of oneself into two halves. Two parts, yes, complete as one was. But yourselves, you move on. And that which was is past in your energy, in yourselves, in your remembrance, in your experience of now, it is past. So they're saying because they see us as always, like all of time encompassed in the now, that's how they see us. So, but they're saying for our understanding, we understand it as past and future. And they want us to see it that this is a process, that it's not totally past yet, that we're going to be moving through this bumpy time, but that every little bit that goes away is past. And we're going to see it as the thing that was or used to be. And they're saying that they're calling it is an undoing, a deregulating of oneself into two halves. And I love the choice of words, deregulating, because that implies regulation. When something is regulated, it's controlled. And so much of who we are and how we are is how we control ourselves and our environment. It's about control. And we have to open that up and split that open. Right? We have to release control. We have to allow. So I think it's a very important choosing of words there. All right, next paragraph. This is the last paragraph. They say this last paragraph is about is telling us that we can set the tone of how this is going to happen for ourselves, and this is super important. And I love that they end on this note, because they always are wanting us to feel encouraged, right? To feel what's possible for us, the highest expression of our life. They want us to have a great life. And so they're saying we can set the tone, that we can bridge the chaos, that we have the ability and we can rise above it by focusing on this light that we carry and getting as much into that light as we possibly can. So here's how they say it. They say, this separating self, it must occur for some time now. It is a great unfolding where you are, and there's more to come just now on the horizon. This great unraveling takes its tone from the self. Feel in the self as you're bridging this opening, as you are rising above the turmoil, the unsettling. Feel in the self as you are reaching for what is, living in the new now, bridging. You can breach. You can breach this gap, this turmoil. You can feel in the self for how to reach into that next beyond in the calm. And the truth of the self that carries you now. It is the light within that answers. You beckon us in, and we point to now within the self. You are all that is. So I love this paragraph. And I think if we just start to look at some of the individual pieces, they say that the great unraveling takes its tone from the self. So we are integrated to the earth. We are part of the earth. So the more that we are able to hold peace, hold trust, and to allow, right, to let in more of ourselves, the smoother this process can be for ourselves and for everybody, for all of humanity. And don't put it on yourself that is your job to save humanity. It's not. Like your primary job for coming is for your experience. And yes, we are all anchoring the light and helping humanity to move into this next expression, but no one of us is responsible for doing it alone. That your job is yourself and your experience, and that's it, right? So some of us have a tendency, because you are highly capable, there is the feeling like, oh, I've got to wear the weight of the world on my shoulders, and you don't. Like, that's just too much for one person. We are meant to do things together as a whole, and all any of us can do is our one tiny part of who we are individually. That's all we can do. And so to recognize that and not ever be in judgment or be hard on ourselves, because that's counter purpose, right? That's against the purpose. The purpose is to feel great. That's what they want us to do. So, they say, feel in the self as you're bridging this opening, as you are rising above the turmoil. So this is possible, to rise above the turmoil, the unsettling. They're saying, feel in the self as you are reaching for what is, living in the new now, bridging. So I love that, reaching for what is. That means a release of our expectations and the ways in which we try to control the outcome. So instead of trying to control the outcome, we reach to perceive what is and to allow what is, right? That's a big part of this. And they say you can breach the gap, right? This turmoil. So we can, between the old and the new, we can breach that gap. We can basically jump into the now, right? And they say you can feel in the self for how to reach into that next beyond in this turmoil. You can feel, and they say, and the truth of the self that carries you now. So how is it? How is it that we do this? How do we reach into the next beyond and the truth of the self that carries you now? How do we do it? They say it is the light within that answers. So it is about putting your focus and your attention on that light. And we get there through trust, through allowing, through letting go of our expectations, all of the things they've been trying to get us to do, right? And through our healing, through as we are facing it, every time we encounter our stuff, our junk, to face it and to allow it to move through. And when we do, it'll pass, it'll heal really quickly right now. And they say, you beckon us in, and we point to now within the self. You are all that is. So super cool. Super cool message, you guys. So yes, definitely a mind bender. I totally agree on that one. I don't know if I will ever fully understand while I'm embodied what that means, but I think it really helps as just a conceptually to understand why we're experiencing time the way we are. And why is it that we feel we are moving so quickly, both in terms of our healing, all of these things, and what is it we're trying to stretch into? So it gives us a visual metaphor, at least, to understand it and to understand how it's happening to us and to humanity and to the earth. So you're saying, here we are, you're saying wholeness personified. Yes. Ooh, that's beautiful, beautiful, awesome. Love your messages. Thank you so much, you guys. So beautiful. Thank you. And you're so welcome. You guys know how much I appreciate that you are here, that sharing these messages. Like, I know that these are, they're a lot, and you guys are showing up and you are taking them in. And I am so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that we share this as a community, because I find them to be amazing. And I feel like there's so much work we can do together just through our awareness, just through our willingness to open up, just like they're describing. So it really is encouraging to me that we're doing this together. They say, you got this. That's exactly right. They say, you got this. You do. We do have this. But again, we have our part, not the whole thing. We're not responsible for everything, just our part. You got this. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here with me. Sending you lots of love. And I will see you guys next Friday live. Bye, you guys.